For me, as the fire chief of Eugene Springfield Fire, the reality for me was it can happen here. This is the wake-up call. This was the weather event that if it would have started, if our ignition source would have been in the Lowell, Dexter area on that night with those same precipitating factors, we could have very easily been fighting this fire off of Spencer's Butte, off Willamette Street, Fox Hollow. We could have very easily been into that area.
The Holiday Farm fire could have blown into the Eugene Springfield metro area. After seeing what happened in Talent and Phoenix, we had a firsthand view of a wildfire in an urban setting and realized that we needed to start organizing in our community to prepare residents for the possibility of a wildfire burning in the metro area.
Reflect back, get a map, and say, wow, a fire traveled 20 miles in 15 hours. And that is just unbelievable. Not only that, it was within the McKenzie River Valley, which is, it's a lot of green trees. They shouldn't burn. The McKenzie River is right there, which is a lot of humidity. It shouldn't burn. It shouldn't do these kinds of things. That tells us we were in a condition that it was unprecedented. Ivy burning within 3 inches of the McKenzie River, which is radiating humidity. Folks, that shouldn't have happened. It should not have happened. But unfortunately, that's what we experienced that night.
To assist during an evacuation, Eugene Springfield Fire has created evacuation zone maps. Neighborhood preparedness teams are sharing this information on social media and with nearby neighbors. Former fire chief and now city councilor for Ward 8, Randy Groves.
The whole Eugene Springfield area has been broken into zones. There's a really nice color-coded map that shows where those zones are. My advice is print that off and put it in your kit. I really like the neighborhood association system that we have in our city because it gives us a chance to think autonomously within a geographical area and how we support one another. And a part of that is not only knowing your family's needs, but knowing people on your street. Do you have elderly neighbors that are going to need assistance? Do you have people with special needs, disabilities that might need assistance as well?
Because a wildfire is so dynamic, Randy said, evacuation routes change with the specifics of that event.
It's hard to give a specific exact evacuation plan with routes and rally locations because you don't know ahead of time exactly what the emergency is. You'll receive information via the emergency communication network. You'll receive over your cell phone if you sign up for the county's emergency notification system, and then they give you specifics. They will say, for example, whatever your evacuation zone is, and they'll list off the zones that need to evacuate. And at that time, they will tell you, for example, what direction to head. And so that's really how it comes together. One of the problems with having pre-designated places to report to and directions and route of travel is in a flood, you don't want to go down to the low-level areas. In a wildland fire in the hills, you don't want to get up into the hills. So if you have one specific plan for evacuation, it doesn't fit every emergency. So the main thing is knowing your evacuation zone, knowing how you're going to receive the information, and at that point, figuring out the best route for you and your family. And I would encourage everybody to know multiple ways into and out of your residence, into and out of places you frequently visit, routes into and out of places you work.
This is a great time to review Lane County's alert system, your evacuation zone, and multiple evacuation routes.
The Alameda fire started in Ashland as a small grass fire, which quickly spread and destroyed 2,800 homes and businesses in Talent and Phoenix.
What set in was the memory of people dying in their cars in Paradise. That overtook us. And there was a kind of panic about that I do not want to die in my car in a fire.
I was the manager of the park. It was the very first neighborhood to burn. So we saw the smoke coming. We got no alerts whatsoever. And I literally was out banging on doors leading the evacuation. I was the evacuation because I was the only person who knew where everybody lived and where the seniors lived and where the people with disabilities lived and where the veterans lived. And so I was out banging on doors. And then about 20 minutes into the evacuation, homes in the park were burning already.
When we found out, we had 6 minutes to get out of our house. The flames were already in the park. We didn't hear anything on the news. There was no warning system. There was no nothing. We lost everything we owned. We walked out with the clothes on our backs. I had flip-flops, shorts, and a T-shirt.
My housemates and I evacuated after watching the fire grow closer for hours and unable to get reliable information on the situation. Getting into our cars, I could hear propane tanks exploding.
Never got a notification. I logged onto Facebook, and that's how I found out this fire. When we drive to Phoenix, my 5-year-old looks at where we used to live, and she asks, "Where's my home?" That just breaks me to pieces, knowing that my daughter has that memory engraved in her, that the place she called home and she grew up and she learned how to take her first steps is no longer there.
I moved here July 1st to be with my aging mother. She's 82. I'm 63. And we were combining our households when the fire struck and we lost everything. I'm sorry, this is still very emotional. I've been working hard. I've been doing all of the paperwork and the running for assistance anywhere we can find it for my mom. And I hit my wall a week ago. So I'm very emotional. I have to apologize. Who would ever think that we lose everything and to face starting over at our ages is very daunting and overwhelming.
We know that many of us are ill prepared for continuing with the wildfire. Our homes are not hardened. Our landscaping is too close and too dense. So we wanted to bring this information to the larger community so that they can start preparing their respective homes.
Like a phoenix, in that world reduced to ashes, there were none but to survive. I stayed all night, one day after, carried bodies to the river, wondering how I stayed alive. 13 stations of the cross to mark their fall, and I've had my say, and I confess to nothing more, and I'll join them now, those that left me long before. 13 crosses high above the cold Missouri water. 13 crosses high above the cold Missouri